He's here to run the show. It's Dan King. You should already know. Dan King is gonna run the show. Oh yeah, listen up now, here we go. Dan King, he is the king of the empire, the chief, the leader. He's here to take you higher. He brings the heat. All hail the Game Boy geek. Dan King is here to run the show. Oh yeah, you should already know. It's Dan King, and it's the top.
Hello my friends, it's the Game Boy Geek here. We're going through my top 100 favorite games. Today we're looking at 60 through 51, so let's get started. My number 60 is a family game. It's part of a series called Tales and Games, where they have little stories that kids know, like Three Little Pigs. This is a game, it's 2 to 5 players, ages 7 up, plays in about 20 minutes. It's similar to, if you've ever heard of King of Tokyo, I call this game King of Tokyo Light, where you're rolling dice, Yahtzee style, where you get up to 2 extra re-rolls, and you're trying to put together houses, whether you put together the straw house, or the wood house, or the brick house. And those houses obviously are, each one gets stronger against the wolf, because you can roll some wolf and try to blow this little pinwheel around, and it points to a different type of house, and you might blow your friend's house down. So you're trying to build your house, you're trying to blow your friend's house down, you're also trying to go after some immediate goals, like, hey, the first person to have a full wood house gets this end game goal with his good points. And there's some end game goals that are like, hey, the tallest house, the most houses, things like that. So you've got some interesting goals that are immediate, you've got some end game goals to think about, but it's very good for families. But actually we still like to play this as a great filler with just gamers. Even though the dice are pink, it looks like a kid's game, it's still fun. It has enough depth for gamers, for a filler game, but it's great with kids and family as well. Three Little Pigs. It also comes with the storybook itself that you can read to your kids. My number 59 is another Tales in series, just like the last one actually. This is the last one that just came out, Volume 3, The Hare and Tortoise, again from Yellow Games in the US. Same style of game where it's family friendly, but still it's a good filler for gamers. Now this one, again, same thing, 2 to 5 players, 20 minutes to play, and it has the book of The Hare and the Tortoise in there that you can read to the kids. And what you're trying to do is you are betting that one of the certain animals, the fox or the tortoise or the hare or the wolf, is going to win the race. So secretly you have someone that you want to win. Actually, you've got 2 or 3 depending on how many players you're playing, and you have cards in your hand. You're playing cards to make these different people go forward, and depending on how many are thrown, things will stop and people will move a certain amount. And so it's very interesting because it's a lot of hand management, a lot of playing, when do I play this card? All of them move differently, which is really cool. It's very balanced, and you're trying to think, you don't want to be too obvious because you don't want everyone to know which one you're going for, because they probably won't be throwing those cards down too often. But since they all move differently, and the turn goes around, it's just a very interesting card play to see how things happen over a turn. It's very simple to teach, but again, there's enough depth there that makes it like still a good, fun, light game for gamers, but definitely a good weight for families as well. The Hare and the Tortoise. My number 58 is a semi-cooperative game where you're out exploring islands. In fact, you're exploring archipelagos. This is a Euro-style game, a semi-cooperative where there's a lot of resource management, there's a lot of exploring. I think they call this a 3X game. So it's 2 to 5 players, and it can take anywhere from 30 minutes to 3 hours, depending on what length game you play. And you're off and you're exploring islands, and the components and the artwork in this game is absolutely amazing. There's a lot to this game. It's a pretty, I would call it, for me, it's a heavy Euro. For others, it might be a medium heavy. But there's negotiation involved. There's a lot of player interaction. There's hidden goals at the beginning. So you know what you're going for, but you don't know what the other people are going for. And you have to judge by what they're doing over the course of the game, what possibly are their goals at the end of the game. There's also secret end game conditions that ends the game. So not only are you trying to figure out what other people are doing to get points, and you might want to piggyback on that to also get points, but you're also trying to figure out, maybe they're trying to end the game quickly. So it's a lot of trying to figure out and sense the table and sense what people are doing. There's a lot of working together because it's semi-cooperative. You could all possibly lose in this game. There's negotiation, there's resource management, there's special power cards, and there's all certain different things you can do. And I really love how this brings it all together. It's very thematic and the components are great. And this one is just a different game, pretty deep, but excellent if you have the time to play it. Archipelago. My number 57 is one of the few games on my list I don't actually have a copy of because it's out of print, and one of my friends in my game group has it. It's called Manhattan. Now don't confuse this with Manhattan Project. Manhattan is a very older game where you are trying to, it's area control, where you're trying to control different boroughs of New York. In Manhattan, I guess, and you're putting on your turn, you're basically taking different towers of different heights, and you're placing them in different boroughs, and you can basically place them on top of other people's skyscrapers, and whoever's on the top gets the points. And so you're trying to control as many different spots in different boroughs as possible. You're trying to control the most spots in different boroughs because you'll get those. You're trying to maybe have the highest tower, and you're trying to squash other people's towers. This is one of those games where everyone kind of beats up on the leader, and the leader changes quite a bit because everyone's kind of putting their stuff right on top of them, and there's a lot of lead changes and a lot of going against each other. It's a pretty much in-your-face combative game, but it's very enjoyable, very fun, very easy to teach, and so. Building skyscrapers, if you can find a copy somewhere, I wish they would reprint this. The game's called Manhattan. My number 56 was one of the big first Kickstarter games that went viral, I guess you should say. It's for 2 to 4 players. It's called Alien Frontiers. This is a worker placement game where you're rolling dice, and with those dice, they're your ships, and you're putting them off into different spots in space to do different things. Maybe you're trying to get resources to do something. Maybe you're trying to colonize a part of the planet. So there's lots of things you can do. There's some that allow you to mess with your opponents. There's cards with special powers that you can grab. And it's really just mitigating the dice and trying to figure out what to go. So you'll be getting extra ships, which will allow you to give you more dice, which will give you more options. There's a little mini engine building there. A lot of area control, because when you colonize a certain part of the planet, that gives you a special ability, or allows you to do something easier on the board than most people can. And I just like the aspect. I like rolling dice. I like placing the workers. I like trying to deal with what's been given with me at the time and go down different paths. Might not be where I wanted to go this turn, but it's probably the best thing for me now. And I like that decision making in this game. It's a very solid worker placement game. And if you like the sci-fi theme, I don't typically like sci-fi themes, which shows you that I can look through that with this game and still enjoy it and still have it this high on my top 100 list. Alien Frontiers. My number 55 is another deductive game. It's a 2-player game designed by my favorite designer, Bruno Cathala, from Hurricane Games, Mr. Jack Pocket. This is a quick 2-player game that takes about 15 minutes to play. It's a good introduction to what's called the Mr. Jack system. I'll be talking more about this later. Essentially, one player is Mr. Jack, who's Jack the Ripper, and who has committed some murder, and the other person is the investigator, the police, trying to catch them. And in this game, it's interesting how the system works is, like for instance, Jack will get 1 move, then the investigator will get 2 moves in a row, then Jack will get the last move for the round. And then next round it flips, where the investigator will get 1 move, Jack will get 2 moves in a row, and then the investigator will get 1 move. And so it has this ebb and flow in the game, which is like that in all the games in the series. In this game, you're trying to manipulate where Sherlock Holmes, his dog Toby, and where Watson is, because they can see certain people, and Jack knows which person he is, and he's trying to make sure that those people don't see him. It's a very interesting, sort of an abstract-y, but very interesting game, cat and mouse, where you're trying to, the investigator's trying to narrow it down each round as to who Jack is, and Jack's trying to slow him down. Very good, quick filler game. You can bring it anywhere, fit in your pocket. Mr. Jack Pocket. My number 54 is a negotiation game. I told you I love negotiation. It's one of the genres that I really like. And this is one called Corporate America. It's not a very well-known game. It's from Nothing Sacred Games. 3 to 6 players, and it says it takes 90 minutes to 2 hours. That's about right. These usually tend to take about 2 hours, our games. It is a little long, but it's a lot of fun where you are purchasing businesses. And then from those businesses, whether it's energy, or there's one that's called sin, which is kind of interesting. And there's different areas of commerce that these businesses do well in. Some of them have, some good businesses are in multiple commerce sections. And then after that, we go to a section where everyone's negotiating, where different commerces are making money. And depending on whose turn it is, they can negotiate with other people. Like if I have energy and energy comes up, but I'm the only person that has it, I could pay off that person and be like, yeah, accept that. But let's just let this be the one that scores this turn, and I'll make some money. And hey, I'm gonna make 10 bucks, I'll give you 4. And the guy's like, no, I want 5. And there's lots of negotiation going on. So the negotiation part is really cool. And then later on, everyone's actually gonna run for president. And then there's going to be different laws enacted that will determine what things happen, sometimes good, sometimes bad, to certain commerces. So you can imagine if you have businesses in certain commerces and other people have those same businesses, you're going to have the same type of ideas and you kind of plot together. It's just a very interesting thing that has negotiation in different aspects of the game. It's quite focused negotiation though. It's not very wide open. You know what you're negotiating for. It's pretty straightforward and it happens in different parts of the game. But overall, it's an enjoyable negotiation game, Corporate America. My number 53 is a party game. It's a lot of fun from R&R Games called Time's Up. Now in this game, there's a bunch of historic people. There will be about 30 cards at the beginning of the game that gets given to the different teams. And everybody reads the names out, so you kind of know who is in that deck. Granted, there's a lot of them, but you kind of have heard them. And then there's 3 rounds. The first round is pretty much open. Every person gets a certain amount of time to get their team to guess who's on the card. If they get it right, they get to keep the card. And in the first round, you can say, you can make noises, you can do charades, you can talk pretty much all you want. And once all those cards are gone, distributed to the teams, you get that many points. All the cards come back in, you read the names again. And then the second round's harder. You can only give 1 word clue, but you can keep doing the acting. And then the third round, it's just no words, it's just charades. So you think the rounds get harder, but you've heard the people's names more and more as the game goes on, so it gets a little easier, so the difficulty stays about the same. And that's beautiful elegance in a party game. It's hilarious, you'll laugh your butt off. Time's Up. My number 52 is a game set in the Dungeons and Dragons universe, which means I would typically hate it. But the theme isn't that strong in this game, so I guess I can look past that part of it. It plays 2 to 5 players. It's a worker placement game called Lords of Waterdeep. In this game, you are secret lords in the city of Waterdeep, and you're trying to do different quests. Some of them are commerce quests, some of them are piety quests. And you're trying to go off and recruit people, whether it's wizards or fighters or rogues. And depending on the mission that you're going for, you'll need a different type of people to go do that. And then you'll have to go to a specific spot to complete that mission. And then those missions will give you points and things like that. So you're going off. It's basically worker placement. You're putting your stuff on the board. No one else can go there normally. And then you're getting stuff. You can also build some buildings where other people can go, and then they have to pay you to use those buildings. There's also an aspect of take that, where you can go and play bad cards on people and make them do mandatory quests. As soon as they had exactly what they needed, you can throw one of those on them. So there's some combative elements there. Even though I don't like the theme that much, and I don't necessarily like fantasy themes and stuff like that in general, the gameplay of this is really good. It's sort of an entry-level-ish for worker placement. It takes about an hour to play. If the theme doesn't scare away non-gamers, which it may, it's one of the best intro worker placement games, Lords of Waterdeep. Don't let the theme scare you, because it did me, but I played it and I love it. Okay, last one for this round. Number 51 is a city building game. We talked about Suburbia earlier in my list and how much I loved playing SimCity as a kid. And this is another city building game, but quite different from Suburbia. Sunrise City from Clever Mojo Games. 2 to 4 players, plays in about an hour. In this game has great components, by the way. These city tiles are super thick. And at different stages of the game, one stage of the game, you're building up different development zones, whether it's going to be commercial or industrial or residential and things like that. And then the next phase of the game, you're placing you're bidding over who has control of those zones, who can build on those in a further phase. So there's some bidding and auctioning going on. Then there's a phase where you're actually building, and you're putting these big, thick tiles, and sometimes they're building up to 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 floors, and it's just this city is growing up in front of you, which is really cool. It's fun to look at the end. Everyone also gets a secret role that they get to use in each of the 3 different rounds. And the cool thing is the scoring mechanic, where every time you score points, you move this little star up. But if you can end exactly on the point 10 points, you actually get double the amount of points, which is really cool. So it's got a cool scoring mechanic, fun city building game, very interesting. Sunrise City.
Take you higher. He brings the heat. All hail the Game Boy geek. Dan King is here to run the show. Oh yeah, you should already know it's Dan King, and it's the top 100.